The block is shut down on both sides by NYPD and SWAT. And the commissioner's like, there's no way all these people would be here this aggressive trying to get a bunch of sneakers. I was like, yeah, I'm as confused as you are. What up, GQ? My name is Jeff Staple. I'm the founder and creative director of Staple, and this is my life in sneakers. I'm a child of the 70s, born in New Jersey to first generation immigrant parents, but there were no people that looked like me in the middle of New Jersey. One of the commonalities I could really relate with other kids was sports, particularly basketball and tennis at the time. You know, McEnroe, Sampras, Courier, those days of this kind of bad boy of tennis style that was coming out was really dope to me. And then when Michael Chang hit the scene, it was like, yo, somebody looks like me and is kicking ass, yes. These gods, whether it was the GOAT Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson with the crossovers, the only thing that we as mere mortals could resonate with was the thing on their feet. Something hit me in my gut that these were pieces of art and not a commodity item. I had zero intention to start a fashion brand. I was a graphic design major. My path was get a job at an ad agency. Yes, I knew about these 10 brands that were in the world that were sold at a store called Union in Soho. And I'm talking Futura had a brand, Stash had a brand, but I wasn't gonna be one of these brands. There's 12 of them in the whole world and they're sold at this one shop in the whole world. I didn't think I deserved to be in that culture. I took inspiration from graffiti artists who would paint their art and do their tag on the side of subway trains versus on a static wall, strictly with the purpose of getting it seen by as many eyeballs as possible. And so I was thinking man, maybe instead of on a paper, I should print my art on a shirt and then I could give those to 10 of my friends. And now when they take the L train and the bus, my art is getting seen by thousands of people every day. That was such a subversive thing to me. As I was wearing one of my shirts around in the 555 Soul store, which was in the Lower East Side, I walked in and the manager said, yo, that's a cool shirt. Where'd you get that from? And I was like, oh, I made this shirt. And he's like, damn, if you make a dozen, we'll put them in the shop if you want. And then Union, the store that was my mecca, the manager there caught wind of these shirts selling at 555 and he was like, yo, if you make a separate design for us, we'll take 12 as well. It was just me going to school at Parsons, breaking into school to print these shirts and hustling 12 shirt orders between these boutiques in downtown New York City. I mean, that's as the culture as you can get. This is the era of people selling mixtapes and CDs out of the back of their trunk, airbrushing art on the back of a denim jacket and slinging that one at a time, me silk screening t-shirts and hand delivering them to these shops 12 at a time. You know, this was the birth of street culture as we know it today. In the mid-90s, Fader magazine was beginning a journey of becoming one of the most influential lifestyle culture publications and media arms that ever existed, in my opinion. Really one of the first that combined hip-hop, rock, gaming, fashion, all in one publication. I was designing every issue and I would pitch stories that I'd want to write. And being that I was a sneakerhead, I noticed there was this phenomenon happening in the mid-90s where heads would go to Japan or go to Hong Kong and they would buy back shoes that were only available in Japan or Hong Kong, bring them back here in America and sell them for 25 bucks above retail. And then they would buy sneakers in the Bronx, Philly, and DC, and then bring them back to Tokyo and Hong Kong and do the same thing. This was the beginning of resale culture. But it was literally kids with empty duffel bags carrying as much as they could inside that duffel and transporting them back and forth. And I'm sitting here as a sneakerhead saying damn, if Nike is this billion-dollar organization and they know the shoe that they're dropping in Japan is highly coveted in America, why wouldn't they just release it globally? Why are they making us do this cat and mouse game? And so I pitched the story to Rob Stone, who's the publisher of the Fader. I want you to send me to Japan. I'm gonna meet with Nike Japan and I'm gonna ask them why they're doing this. And by the way, I knew nobody at Nike. I knew nothing. I literally hit the ground in Tokyo. I went literally from kids who worked at sneaker stores to their manager, to their buyer, to the salesperson that they dealt with at Nike, to their district manager, to the point where I finally got in touch with Mr. Marcus Tayui, the one guy at Nike Japan. We had a great interview at Nike Japan headquarters. Like, just me, a kid from New York, from streetwear, manages to get to Japan, and I'm sitting at his office at Nike Japan. Like, I've already won the game in my mind. Like, I'm like, yo, I'm done. I'm sitting at Nike. And in the interview, he's like, wait, so let me get this straight. You designed the fader, you write, you're a sneakerhead, obviously, and you have this brand called Staple that like is sort of catching fire in New York. I was like, yeah. He's like, we need to be working together. I was like, yes, yes, yes. The White Dunk anniversary was coming, and they were gonna dedicate different dunks to different key cities in sneaker culture. And Marcus calls me up on my landline telephone. I'm like, hello. And he's like, Jeff, it's Marcus. Would you be interested in designing the dunk that is dedicated to the city of New York? It didn't click immediately for me that, oh, I'm putting the pigeon on the dunk. We actually explored Statue of Liberty dunk or Empire State Building. After like maybe the 7th round, it was like, wait, pigeon on the dunk? Could that work? And then, of course, people were like, who the fuck would wear a pigeon flying vermin rat on their feet? Like, no, that's the way to get people to never want to touch this shoe. But I love that everyone hated them, because actually everyone hated me. People in the industry were like, you're this Chinese kid from New Jersey. What, you come from a rich billionaire? No, there was just haters everywhere, and I felt like pigeons were like hated on as well. To me, a pigeon really represents the unloved underdog hustler of New York City. I said, I want to make a shoe that if you live in Jersey, Connecticut, or Philly, you don't understand what I mean. I want to make a shoe for New York, by New York, and New Yorkers will look at it and be like, I get it. And they're like, all right, we trust you. We don't get it, but we trust that when we put this out, true New Yorkers will understand what you mean. February 22nd, 2005, we released the Pigeon Dunk. At this point, like, sneaker lineups weren't really a thing yet. Like, campouts weren't a thing. There were probably 2 other shoes in history that had a campout at this point. I remember the night of the 21st when I left the store that night, there was maybe like 50 kids online, all well-behaved. I bought them pizzas because it was like freezing cold. And I said, yo, I'll see you guys tomorrow, right? Come back down the next day, 10 a.m. The block is shut down on both sides by NYPD and SWAT. And the commissioner's like on the megaphone, who owns Reed Space? Like, and I'm like, me. They're like, come over here, what are you doing? Like, he thought I was selling drugs out to space or something like that. I was like, no, we're selling a sneaker. And he's just like, there's no way all these people would be here this aggressive on a morning, like overnight, trying to get a bunch of sneakers. I was like, yeah, I'm as confused as you are. When the crowd sort of cleared and the cops finally got some control, we saw on the ground that there were like baseball bats and knives, and we even saw a machete, like a legit Crocodile Dundee sized machete. Just people came prepared to get the shoes by any means necessary, which was a scary situation. I'm glad it didn't go there. The NYPD really helped. They let kids who finally got the shoe be escorted out the back door. They actually called the taxi and limousine service to have New York taxis lined up out the back so that kids could go straight into the taxi and get out of the LES. And I remember one kid was like, I have no more money. I spent all my money on these dunks. And I saw the cop be like, here's $5. Tell the taxi driver to go as far away as you can. On the next morning, it was, unbeknownst to me, on the front page of the New York Post, and covered, frankly, by CBS News, Fox News, NBC News, on like the evening news too. Sneaker lineups might have happened a handful of times. This was the first time that it was like national news overnight. GQ, you asked me to list my top 5 sneakers. The Nike SB Pigeon Dunk, the OG. This is the one that I would say for many people put my name on the map. It's actually a dangerous thing to wear these shoes, like from an asset protection standpoint. Like I will get murked if I get these on my feet. I do appreciate that there's only, 300 in the world. And I also don't believe that Nike and I should ever re-release this, which was on the table, like high up on the list. We collectively decided that this deserves to be like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, let's just leave it as it is forever as a grail. Because of that decision to not re-release the original Pigeon Dunk, we've done other iterations of Pigeon Dunks. Most recently, we did the Panda Dunk, which is my homage to my people and my culture. So going back full circle of that story of being the underappreciated, unknown Asian kid, I did this shoe with the panda representation, and I dropped this shoe first in China, last in New York City. So this was my songbird to my OG culture and giving something back to the motherland. Underneath in the outsole here, you have the original headline from the OG Pigeon Dunk to just, you know, connect it back full circle. A lot of people ask why the outside swoosh is white and the inside swoosh is gray. The gray comes straight from the OG Pigeon Dunk, so you get a little bit of that DNA in here as well. So this is one of my grails as well, one of my top 5, and then the special packaging in the bamboo box is really beautiful too. Again, all with the Chinese characters to remark back to the homeland. Another part of my top 5, the Nordic pack. The true heads will know that like before the Pigeon Dunk, there was an Air Force One and a dunk that I did. This was part of when I was just doing like design work for Nike. The idea was to do a Winter Olympic inspired pack where you have like these wools and these sort of like Nordic themes with the quilting and everything. And then what's cool is like if you look on the inside of this shoe, we even did like sort of like the insoles have like this US map with like different cities that the Winter Olympics were in. Like, so this is Japan. And this is just always one of my favorites. I love the laces on it. And it just reminds me of the time pre-Pigeon Dunk of how simple sneaker culture was. This is low-key one of my favorite projects that I've ever done with Nike. So this is the Nike Considered boot. This was Nike's first foray into a completely sustainable, environmentally friendly shoe, meaning that there are no glues used to make this shoe. All the leather is veg tan. You know, there's like no chemicals used to make this shoe. And I actually named Nike Considered. Nike Considered. It's my name. When they came to me, it was called Nike Ecotech. And I was like, that's a terrible name. And so they were like, okay, help us think of a new name. So what I did was I wrote a manifesto for what should be considered Nike Ecotech. And I said all these things like consider the earth, consider the future, consider, you know, like all this stuff. I wrote this whole manifesto. And so Nike Considered was my name and my brainchild, and just working with this really renegade team at Nike of like 7 other people. But this era of Nike Considered was just one of the great moments of sneaker design for me. Finally, is the Air Jordan 3 Black Cement, obviously. In a time where before brands and streetwear brands were getting collabs left and right, the idea that Michael Jordan would sit down with Tinker Hatfield and create a shoe completely from scratch that wasn't derived from anything before that was, to me, one of the first and best, truest collaborations of all time. If you remember, the Jordan 1 before this was essentially a dunk. The 2 was this like made in Italy strange anomaly that didn't sell anywhere. And then they came back with the 3, and this was the shoe that when I saw this, I thought, this is art. I was obsessed with the shoe. This was the first shoe that I really took care of. And I remember this white on the back of the heel would always get worn off, and I would take white out and meticulously paint the white back. I would like scrub all the pebbles out of the outsole and everything. And my mom and dad are just like, why are you treating this shoe like it's this like religious artifact? I don't know why either. It just did something to me. This to me was the shoe that turned me into a sneakerhead. This is it.
We're gonna go from 5 to 3. You gotta get rid of 2 of them.
Okay, all right. If I had to go from what I selected down to 3, it would be these 3. These are my top 3.
Take away 1 of them, top 2.
Okay. Top 2 right here.
Now let's kill the baby. That's your number 1.
Oh, this is so hard. This is the one that started me as a sneakerhead. This is the one that made me. Oh, I'm gonna have to go with the Genesis. This is the Genesis. Without this, there is no that, you know? So I'm gonna have to go with this. You win, Tinker.
Why the title for your book, not just sneakers?
We were trying to think of all these other clever titles for the book. And I remember my publishing partners said, you know, based on our metadata and like keywords that are searchable on Instagram, the word sneaker really needs to be in the title. And I was like, damn it, I don't want it to just be about sneakers. And so I was like, wait a second, it's Jeff Staple, not just sneakers. There, sneakers is in the title for your keywords, but it also says what I wanted to say, which is that sneakers is a byproduct of who I am, not the reason for my whole existence. Where I've already gone is crazy. Like I've gone 10,000 steps further than I would have ever have thought that I've gone. What I want to position myself now is that of a teacher. This is what I've learned in the 25 years of coming up through this. And how can I make it so that the culture lives and breathes further, even beyond me? There is a competitive side of me where I want to be the best, I want to be number one, and I want to be the greatest, but I don't want to be the greatest in a single lonely room. What is the thing that defines you that you think the world needs to know about and you need to get out of you? Wear that on your sleeve. Don't look around, don't look left, right, don't look on Instagram and TikTok and be like, I want to do exactly what they do, because it's not going to work. The beautiful thing about the world that we live in today is that there's a marketplace for all of y'all. Like no matter how weird, obscure, or random you think you are, there are 100,000 people out there in the world that will back you, and your phone now gives you access to those 100,000 people. So go out there and find them.